Today is the start of a new and very exciting era for 2Clicks Philip. One that's hopefully filled with worse advice, lower CSGO content and danker memes. For DinoPC have sponsored me, 2Clicks Philip, not 3Clicks Philip. They know where it's at. They've provided me with what I'm going to call the 6-Coreosaurus because it has like 6 cores and 32 gigs of RAM and flashy lights. I want a Geforce 1080, designed for full HD gaming. Look, there's all the components. Turns out that grass is wet in the mornings, and as I'm crouched here, water's seeping up into the PSU, so it's probably best just to go home. Not sure what the point was in coming up here anyway. But why do you need such a machine, you might ask? You were dank enough anyway. Well, now I can be dank at 4K. But why, you might cry? None of us have 4K monitors. To which I say, I don't know, I just want to. But you can't tell me what to do, I've got rights. So, let's benchmark this mother. But to make things interesting, it's going to be up against my old PC. An i7-3770K, 16GB of RAM and not so many flashy lights, and a Geforce 670. But here's the twist. My new PC has to compete at 4 times the resolution. Will it win? First up, Grand Theft Auto 5. I tested it out on lowest everything first just for lols, and both computers managed more than 100 FPS average, with the DinoPC comfortably winning with an average of 170 FPS compared with my old PC's pathetic 138. Now to max it out. Can my 6-Coreosaurus manage it? No. GTA 5, at 4K, with every setting maxed out and with 8 times anti-aliasing, runs at an average of 23 FPS. Acceptable for consoles perhaps, but not for me. I'm so disappointed, why can't I run it? Valve please fix, blah blah blah. Never fear. Using the settings suggested in Nvidia's experience program thing, it turned the game down to a mixture of high and very high with 2 times anti-aliasing, and it managed a very respectable 54 FPS average, beating out my old PC's 47 FPS at the same settings but at HD. Of course, with a bit of tweaking I could have hit that 60 FPS mark, but couldn't be bothered. Disabling ambient occlusion would probably have done it. So, a win for my new PC. Now for the age-old question. Can it run Crysis? 3. I like this game. The settings are easy to understand, being just low, medium, high, and very high. I know where I stand with these. I tested the low preset and my old PC won by over 20 FPS. Set to very high, it made both drop below the 60 FPS mark, with my old PC still winning by 6 FPS. And at just high settings it also won, but both systems achieved over 60 FPS and the game looked lovely. So yes, I would be disappointed with this, but I know that I could just lower my new PC to HD and win. But that would be too easy. Shadow of Mordor is the most interesting result that I got. My old PC wins when on the lowest settings, but turn them up and it quickly begins struggling. This is because the game's textures eat a lot of RAM and my old PC's 2GB of video card memory just isn't enough anymore. At very high, my new Geforce 1080 PC takes the lead with its 8GB of RAM gobbling up all those tasty textures. And when maxed out, it obliterates the old PC's performance, scoring almost 3 times the frame rate. Now for Arma 3, a particularly CPU intensive game. Provided I didn't mind medium settings, my old PC could actually run it in 4K pretty well. That being said, my new PC wins on all settings that I compared. I was surprised by how low the FPS was in general. Even when only set to Ultra, it drops well below the 60 FPS mark, though it doesn't seem to matter as much in this game as most. I find that aside from the draw distance, most of the options don't make that much of an improvement beyond high settings anyway. This game is more scalable than most and it's easy to find a balance that looks and plays well on both PCs. Rome 2 kind of scared me off the series a bit, which is why I have no newer games to test with. It really impressed me here though, by looking as bad as possible while still managing to slow my PCs down. The colour correction really makes the place look drab, the environment models are uninspired and the units, although detailed, are riddled with pop-up and artefacts. That being said, my new PC managed to look bad at a higher frame rate, achieving 70 FPS at ultra settings. According to the game's graphical options, high is the 3rd worst looking mode, so maybe I should just play it on that and be happy. It's just that what with very high, ultra and extreme further down, it kind of raises my expectations about my computer's performance and how the game should look and perform at these settings.
Varus! Oh! Quintilus Varus! Give me back my
FPS! I also tested Hitman Absolution, which isn't the newest in the series I know, but still brought my new PC to under 60 FPS at very high settings. I bet it's the lens flare that does that. Jumping from very low to very high to everything maxed out almost exactly halved frame rates every time, yet there weren't many noticeable differences to the image quality apart from a bit less pop-up at higher settings. And to finish it all off, the latest 3D mark. I'm always amazed by how they think up new ways of slowing PCs down. A while ago they began adding volumetric fog everywhere, making the empty space between objects slow your PC down more than the stuff itself. Pure genius. But they've outdone themselves again with Timespy by featuring a room full of older benchmarks, all running simultaneously. But why stop there? Let's really bring PCs to their knees by having high poly count tessellation literally consume the room. Unlike the previous tests, both my PCs had to run this benchmark at the same resolution, making their results directly comparable. My old one got less than 2,000 points and my new one was approaching 7,000, which I think is about on par with what I'd expect. 4K in general seems somewhere between 3 and 4 times more demanding than HD. If you're getting 120 FPS right now on full HD, then you can expect the same settings to perform somewhere between 30 and 40 FPS at 4K. I'm happy to say that, judging from the results that I've seen, that the Geforce 1080 is about 4 times more powerful than my old Geforce 670. And just for lols, here are my two PCs running the 4K Firestrike demo. The CPUs are a little harder to compare. My old i7-3770K is still a very capable processor. Most people upgrading today would choose a new 4-core 6700K. Certainly not a bad decision, but it didn't feel like enough of a leap for me, which is why I opted for a slightly slower, but corier 6800K. 3D Mark thinks it's 70% faster, though in most games and applications I don't feel much of a difference. It does feel awesome to know that even if I disable one, that there are still 11 threads working on something in the background. Be it a map compile or video render. And with Zen coming out later in the year, I think we'll see a shift to 6, 8 and maybe even more cores in the not too distant future, making a 6-core processor more of a future investment than something that will benefit me right now. But hey, I can now watch 8K YouTube videos smoothly, which was something my old PC never managed. Thanks again to DinoPC for this PC. You can check their site out in this video's description. Some of you may criticise my new PC for being unable to game at 4K with everything maxed out or whatever. To which I'll say this. Things have changed. Back in the day, higher settings made a huge difference to how the game looked. Now they look great, even at low settings, with higher ones delivering disproportionately large FPS drops for the graphical improvements that they provide. We used to be able to max out everything, but we had fewer options. Now we have more choices and still expect to be able to have it all. But maybe we should look at what we want most, rather than expecting everything. Want to game at high FPS? Sure, you can do that. Want to game at ultra settings? Yeah, you can do that too. Want to game at insanely high resolutions? Yeah, that's fine. I reckon that if you only care about one of these things, that a Radeon 460 will be fine for a number of years. Even the almighty Geforce 1080 won't let you do all three things at once perfectly, but it'll do a good compromise of all three, or one or two of these things exceptionally well but at the expense of the other. Maybe I'm making excuses, but I don't care. I actually don't. High settings are enough and look almost identical to me. It's nice to have the option of ultra post-processing for post-processing enthusiasts, but high looks like some high-quality post-processed pixels to me. My time with CSGO has shown me that even 60 FPS isn't enough in some cases, so even if I could still technically run an option, I'd still rather disable it and have a more solid minimum FPS. And this is coming from someone who used to game at 640x480 at 30 FPS, just that I could have parallaxed walls enabled in the game Fear. Things have changed. Unlike older games, new ones set high standards, even on lower settings. Well, apart from Rome 2. And best of all, I can now capture footage at 60 FPS and at 4K. It's been a goal of mine for over a year in the quest for ever improving video quality. And thanks to DinoPC, now I can. I'm better than I used to at HD if these results are anything to go by.